Have you ever done something wrong, but for the right reasons?
The future is ours, boys.
Now imagine that impulse to do wrong for right, but magnified with the power to shape history.
First they think you're crazy, then they fight you, and then all of a sudden you change the world.
History's monsters weren't born evil. They weren't hatched in some villain's lair, twirling their mustaches and plotting world domination. Honestly, if they had, the world might have been more prepared to deal with them. What if I told you that history's most notorious figures, the ones we're taught to see as pure evil, sometimes did things that were genuinely good, not accidental good, but deliberate actions that helped real people. Actions that, if done by anyone else, we might actually celebrate. Before you close this video thinking I've lost my mind or that I'm trying to start some kind of historical villain redemption tour, stick with me, because what I'm about to show you isn't just surprising, it's a warning. But first, let me ask, when was the last time you justified doing something wrong because the end result seemed worth it? Keep that thought in mind. It's going to become very relevant. Let's start with the most difficult example, Adolf Hitler. And let me be crystal clear, nothing here excuses or minimizes the Holocaust. This is about understanding something deeper about human nature. In 1933, Nazi Germany passed what were then the world's most comprehensive animal protection laws. Hitler banned animal experimentation, restricted hunting, and regulated livestock treatment to minimize suffering. He was such a passionate vegetarian that dinner guests dreaded his lectures on animal cruelty. Imagine sitting down to a meal only to have Adolf Hitler tell you you're being unethical. Dinner conversations don't get much more awkward than that. And here's the irony. The same man who sought to protect animals orchestrated the systematic murder of millions of human beings. This wasn't just cognitive dissonance, it was moral compartmentalization on a horrifying scale. Zoom out for a moment. Germany in the 1930s was still reeling from World War I. The Treaty of Versailles had left the economy shattered, with millions jobless and desperate. Hitler offered them a vision, a better world. And that's why it worked. It's easy to imagine evil as cartoonish and obvious, but the truth is, it often hides behind promises of progress. Now, consider Joseph Stalin. Under his rule, the Soviet Union transformed from a rural backwater into a global superpower. Literacy rates soared from 24% to over 90%. Women gained access to education and scientific careers. Soviet scientists made breakthroughs in physics, mathematics, and space exploration. But Stalin wasn't just handing out textbooks because he loved learning. He once called education a weapon, adding that its impact depended entirely on who wielded it. For Stalin, education wasn't about inspiring young minds, it was about weaponizing them. Picture him giving a pep talk at graduation. Your knowledge is your power, unless you disagree with me. In which case, I hope you enjoyed reading your last book. Yet, there's no denying the progress. In Stalin's USSR, people learned to read, write, and send each other heavily censored letters about how they couldn't trust their neighbors. But this progress wasn't free. It was built on gulags, purges, and mass starvation. Now let's go back further in history to someone whose vision of progress spanned continents, Genghis Khan. Genghis Khan was known as one of the most brutal conquerors of all time. Genghis Khan led invasions that killed millions and devastated entire civilizations. His armies razed cities and left mountains of skulls as warnings to his enemies. But here's the other side. Genghis Khan unified vast territories, creating trade routes that became the foundation for the Silk Road. His empire connected the East and West in ways that had never been seen before, facilitating the exchange of goods, ideas, and technologies. Genghis Khan was basically the CEO of the first global enterprise. Sure, his corporate restructuring involved raising cities, but hey, you can't argue with those Silk Road profit margins. If LinkedIn existed back then, his profile would say skills, leadership, unification, and creative population control. He even implemented policies of religious tolerance, allowing his diverse empire to coexist under one rule. It's hard to reconcile these extremes. The man who fostered global commerce was the same one who slaughtered entire populations. His legacy is a reminder that progress and destruction often walk hand in hand. And speaking of legacies built on paradoxes, let's look at someone closer to modern times, Andrew Carnegie. Andrew Carnegie was one of the wealthiest industrialists in history. He built his fortune on the backs of exploited laborers. His steelworkers endured grueling conditions for meager pay, and attempts to unionize were often met with brutal crackdowns. Yet, Andrew also became one of history's greatest philanthropists. He funded over 2,500 libraries, founded universities, and donated millions to scientific research and the arts. His philosophy, summed up in his famous essay, The Gospel of Wealth, argued that the rich had a moral obligation to give back to society. But here's the paradox. Was his philanthropy an act of genuine goodwill, or an attempt to cleanse his conscience after amassing a fortune built on inequality? It's a question that lingers in every statue or institution bearing his name. Now let's turn to someone whose name still stirs debate in the streets of Medellin, Pablo Escobar. At the height of his power, Escobar controlled 80% of the global cocaine trade and was responsible for thousands of deaths. But in Medellin, Colombia, many remember him as El Robin Hood. Escobar built entire neighborhoods for the poor, homes with running water, electricity, and proper sanitation. He funded schools, hospitals, and even soccer fields. Escobar was basically Medellin's most controversial urban planner. Need a soccer field? He's got you. Need healthcare? He'll pay for it. But, don't ask where the money's coming from unless you're okay with the answer being cocaine. Escobar once burned $2 million in cash to keep his family warm while on the run. That's not just generosity. It's the kind of financial decision that makes accountants cry. Yet, his philanthropy wasn't a PR stunt. Residents recall him walking through slums, handing out cash, and listening to their problems. But here's the twist. For every school he built, there was a bombing. For every family he helped, there were thousands more devastated by his trade. It's a reminder that even generosity can't erase bloodshed. Here's the real reason this matters. Evil rarely looks like evil from the inside. It doesn't announce itself with horns and a pitchfork. It shows up with a smile, a plan, and promises of progress. The road to atrocity is paved with justifications, small compromises made in the name of the greater good. Hitler believed he was creating a utopia. Stalin thought he was building a worker's paradise. Escobar saw himself as a champion of the poor. Carnegie believed his wealth served a higher purpose. Even Genghis Khan likely saw himself as a unifier. And here's the uncomfortable part. We all tell ourselves similar stories. Maybe not on that scale, but think about the last time you said, "It's fine, I'm doing this for the right reasons." Sound familiar? Take a look around. Governments justify privacy violations in the name of national security. Corporations destroy ecosystems while promising economic progress. Even tech billionaires who build schools and hospitals are sometimes part of the systems perpetuating inequality. And let's not forget the internet. Think about the last time someone was canceled online. Maybe they deserved it, but did you question the methods used? Or did the greater good of accountability justify any means necessary? This is how it starts, not with concentration camps, but with choices we justify as necessary. Right now, somewhere in the world, someone is taking their first step down a dark path. They're justifying small wrongs for greater rights. And the scary thing? They might genuinely believe they're doing good. So what do? First, start small. The next time you're tempted to justify something wrong because the goal seems right, stop. Remember this video. Remember that every monster in history thought they were the hero of their own story. Second, stay alert. Watch for the patterns we've discussed. Speak up, not with accusations, but with understanding. Finally, ask yourself, what greater good is being used to justify wrong in your world today? Because evil doesn't require monsters. It just needs good people who stop questioning their own certainty. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, and we'll see you in the next one.